it this one? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. ومن الناس من يقول آمنا بالله وباليوم الآخر وما هم بمؤمنين. يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون. في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم بما كانوا يكذبون. وإذا قيل لهم لا تفسدوا في الأرض قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون. ألا إنهم هم المفسدون ولكن لا يشعرون. وإذا قيل لهم آمنوا كما آمن الناس قالوا أنؤمن كما آمن السفهاء ألا إنهم هم السفهاء ولكن لا يعلمون. وإذا لقوا الذين آمنوا قالوا آمنا وإذا خلوا إلى شياطينهم قالوا إنا معكم إنما نحن مستهزئون. الله يستهزئ بهم ويمدهم في طغيانهم يعمهون. أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى فما ربحت تجارتهم وما كانوا مهتدين. مثلهم كمثل استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام على آل ياسين. السلام عليك يا داعي الله ورباني آياته. السلام عليك يا باب الله وديان دينه. السلام عليك يا خليفة الله وناصر حقه. السلام عليك يا حجة الله ودليل إرادته. السلام عليك يا تالي كتاب الله وترجمان. السلام عليك في آناء ليلك وأطراف نهارك. السلام عليك يا بقية الله في أرضك السلام عليك يا ميثاق الله الذي أخذه ووكده. السلام عليك يا وعد الله الذي ضمنا. السلام عليك أيها العلم المنسوب والحلم المسبوب والغوث والرحمة الواسعان وعدا غير مكذوب. السلام عليك حين تقوم. السلام عليك حين تقعد. السلام عليك حين تقرأ وتبين. السلام عليك حين تصلي وتقنت. السلام عليك حين تركع وتسجد. السلام عليك حين تهلل وتكبر. السلام عليك حين تحمد وتستغفر. السلام عليك حين تصبح وتمسي. السلام عليك في الليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى. السلام عليك أيها الإمام المأمون. السلام عليك أيها المقدم المأمول. السلام عليك بجوامع السلام. أشهدك يا مولاي أني أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله لا حبيب إلا هو وأهله. وأشهدك يا مولاي أن عليا أمير المؤمنين حجته والحسن حجته والحسين حجته وعلي بن الحسين حجته ومحمد بن علي حجته وجعفر بن محمد حجته وموسى بن جعفر حجته وعلي بن موسى حجته ومحمد بن علي حجته وعلي بن محمد حجته والحسن بن علي حجته. وأشهد أنك حجة الله أنتم الأول والآخر وأن رجعتكم حق لا ريب فيها يوم لا ينفع نفسا إيمانها لم تكن آمنت من قبل أو كسبت في إيمانها خيرا وأن الموت حق وأن ناكرا ونكيرا حق. وأشهد أن النشر حق والبعث حق وأن الصراط حق والمرصاد حق والميزان حق والحشر حق والحساب حق والجنة والنار حق والوعد والوعيد بهما حق. يا مولاي شقي من خالفكم وسعد من أطاعكم، فاشهدوا على ما أشهدتك عليه، وأنا ولي لك بريء من عدوك. فالحق ما رضيتموه، والباطل ما أسخطتموه، والمعروف ما أمرتم به، والمنكر ما نهيتم عنه. فنفسي مؤمنة بالله وحده لا شريك له، وبرسوله وبأمير المؤمنين، وبكم يا مولاي أولكم وآخركم، ونصرتي معدة لكم، ومودتي خالصة لكم. آمين آمين. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
And thank you for that beautiful recitation, my brother Ahmed Rachid, and also our dear brother Ali Merhi, who's undergoing his HSC exams, him, Zack, and Kareem Jaba, who isn't with us tonight. Inshallah, with a loud salawat, let's wish him the best of luck. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, we see great success within our youth and the future, inshallah, the future of our Imam Hasan Islamic Center. We did have a young brother to recite a poem tonight, our dear brother Zack, but Zack unfortunately has hurt his tooth and can't be with us, but inshallah he'll be joining us next week. I was actually very upset because I get excited for Zack's poems, but not tonight. Inshallah, I just wanted to touch on a new project that Imam Hasan Islamic Center are working on, and it's basically a network that sets a religious scholar to each household. So generally, what we have is, we've got a local doctor that we all go to, a local mechanic, a local optometrist, and so on. So basically, a project that Imam Hussein wants to propose to our community is what we propose is like a scholar where the people can refer to or have like a local scholar for their community, for their household. In the same way that we have, for example, our sicknesses, our physical sicknesses, we also have our spiritual sicknesses. And okay, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. No, I got no idea. Sorry, technical issue. We'll be back shortly after the break. Yeah. Oh, Ahsan, yeah. Okay. It also allows any person to interface with the religious scholar. So basically, any person within that household can communicate with that scholar, ask religious questions, jurisprudential, talk about spiritual, religious topics, ask any questions. And this is like a fantastic opportunity for our youth who face a lot of these problems on social media. Both psychological, mental, and the rest of it is a good opportunity for them to be able to communicate with a scholar very easily. It aims to aid the youth and the households with the religious obligations and spiritual remedies. And the most important thing out of all this is it's complete confidentiality. So anything that you speak on this platform, anything you say on this platform would be held in confidence between the person and the scholar. So inshallah, this is something to keep an eye out for the future. It's a project that Imam Hasan Islamic Center wants to work on and provide for our community, inshallah. And inshallah, to continue with tonight's program, I'd like to call upon our one of our talented reciters, Brother Ahmed Rachid, to give us a poem for Imam al-Zaman, correct? Inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Not yet. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I've prepared something a little last minute, and inshallah, on this night where we celebrate the birthday of Imam Hasan AlAskari, inshallah, Imam al-Hujjah is with us on this night. So I ask that we all can raise our voices in Jawab, saying Ya Mehdi. I'm pretty sure everyone is really familiar with this one. And inshallah the ajr is for you. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. يا حجة الله شكوانا إليك يا حجة الله شكوانا إليك أدركنا أدركنا لبيك لبيك أدركنا أدركنا لبيك لبيك يا حجة الله شكوانا إليك يا حجة الله شكوانا إليك أدركنا أدركنا لبيك لبيك أدركنا أدركنا لبيك لبيك جار علينا الزمان يا مولاي يا مهدي نصرخ يا ابن الحسن يا مولاي يا مهدي جار علينا الزمان يا مولاي يا مهدي نصرخ يا ابن الحسن يا مولاي مهدي بقية الله شكوانا إليك بقية الله شكوانا إليك أدركنا أدركنا لبيك لبيك أدركنا أدركنا لبيك لبيك آمل المستضعفين يا مولاي يا مهدي آمل المستضعفين يا مولاي يا نداء الثائرين يا مولاي مهدي يا صرخة المظلومين يا مولاي مهدي قلوب الأطفال تتوق إليك قلوب الأطفال تتوق إليك أدركنا أدركنا لبيك لبيك أدركنا أدركنا لبيك لبيك متى الفرج يكون يا مولاي يا مهدي ويفرح المؤمنون يا مولاي يا مهدي ويزول المجرمون يا مولاي يا مهدي بأمر نصر الله يهدون إليك أدركنا أدركنا لبيك لبيك أدركنا أدركنا لبيك لبيك صلوات على محمد وآل محمد
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لعن ولا ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. Firstly, I would like to congratulate you all in this fine evening, this auspicious evening, this celebrated evening where we gather to celebrate and commemorate the birth of the 11th Holy Imam, Al-Imam Al-Hasan ibn Ali AlAskari, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. Now, when we get to the Imams that are after Imam Al-Qadhim, salamullah alayh, some distinction is placed here. That's why when people go to visit the shrine of Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salam, it holds such a great value that even of the ulama that scrutinize the narrations so heavily, like Sayyid al-Khu'i, was very critical of the chain of narrations and rijal and the status of those who you visit, that he says the only imam where he finds it's probable, whereas his ziyarah is like the ziyarah of Rasulullah in value, is the ziyarah of Ali ibn Musa alayhi salam. And why? He says because he is the pivot. For after the Imam al-Qadhim, there is no other Shia except Ithna Ashari. And the two sons, the son of Imam al-Rida, Imam al-Jawad, and his son, Imam al-Hadi, were known as Ibn al-Rida. When the people would speak to them, they'd call him Ibn al-Rida. Salamullah alayhi. And then everything went really dark. Everything became clandestine and hidden. Why? Because we had to conceal the coming of what? The birth of the Savior, Al-Imam Al-Hujjat ibn Al-Hasan Al-Mahdi Arwahuna Fida. Because if you look at the caliphs from this time, they were all hell-bent on killing the Imam because they knew that this Imam is the one that will restore justice. Basically, he's going to end their tyranny. So when this comes about, it's all about preparing to end this rise. And that's the way the devil works. Even the devil worked in order to prevent the advent of Islam, the coming of the Mab'ath al-Nabawi Sharif, the deliverance of the Prophet, all the way to this Imam. So after Imam al-Rida was martyred and poisoned by Al-Ma'mun, Al-Ma'mun then forced Imam al-Jawad at a young age to marry his daughter, al-Fadl. And there was a reason for this. He wanted from his posterity to come the birth of Imam al-Mahdi through that line. But al-Fadl did not have any children to Imam al-Jawad, and she was the one that ended up poisoning him. Then after that came Imam al-Hadi. And Imam al-Hadi was the first Imam that was actually taken to Samurra. And Samurra was a garrison town When we say, you always hear this, Samurat was a garrison town. Do you know what a garrison town is? Back in those days, we had towns. Today, you really don't have them. The closest thing we could have is probably Holsworthy Army Barracks or something like that. We don't really have a garrison town, a town that's just made for the military, you know, and it's just that it's only military personnel there. It's not that often. Back in the old days, that was something common. So Samurat was a city just for military. That's where the stables of the horses were. That's where the blacksmiths were making the weaponry and whatever technology was being sought out. Yeah, there was technology. It doesn't have to be the technology that we look at today, as in munitions and electrical and mechanical technology. Or it was the beginning of, obviously they had already discovered the catapult and that, so there was that mechanical side there. So in this garrison town where Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam was placed under house arrest and he was placed in prison, there were opinions that of his, from his bondsmaid, her name was Salil. They had a child, and that child was the 11th Imam, Imam al-Hasan ibn Ali. Now, it's not known whether he was actually born in Medina al-Munawwara or in Samurat. There's contention over this because remember, the whole situation's hidden. A lot of the opinions will tell you, yes, he was born in Samurat because the Imam was under house arrest at the time, but we don't know if what took place or whether there was, because there's both historians give the opinions of both situations. So there you see how everything's really hidden. But what we do know is that the 10th Imam had informed Salil. So imagine, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayha, that she was someone that was very high in proximity to Allah and someone that held a lofty status, because he had informed her that from you will come Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi arwahuna fidaf. So from your womb will come the Imam. So from your son Al-Hasan, his son will be the Mahdi. So she was someone that was a keeper of the secret. When we say keeper of a secret, we're talking about these were things that will always be concealed. They weren't open for everyone to know because everyone was heading in the direction of killing the Imam. So anyway, now the 11th Holy Imam lived for a very short time. He didn't live a long time, and he lived during the most amount. I think he lived his lifetime, I think it was either 6 or 7 kings that ruled during his lifetime, because a lot of things took place there. And even during his time, a lot of miracles took place. If you take a look, for example, with Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, you hardly hear any miracles that they did. But Imam al-Askari, you hear a lot of stories of the miracles of Imam al-Askari. One very famous story is when there was a drought and a Christian monk came along and he would raise his hands to the heavens and it would start raining. And the Mu'tasim at the time, the king at the time, said, what is this? Because the people started apostatizing. People started becoming, people, the smallest thing, they start apostatizing. Charles Darwin says something and then people say, all right, God doesn't exist. And then Dawkins says something, people say God doesn't exist. Anything that happens, a Muslim crosses a red light, people say God doesn't exist. That's how people are. They just turn on their religion in an instant. So anyway, this monk was raising his hands to the heavens and making it rain. Now what does this remind you of? It reminds you of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, after he had saved the Israelites, after he had done everything for them, when they reached the other side and they asked him, the first thing they did, they said, listen, Ya Musa, on their way they saw tribes and they saw villages and people had idols. And they got jealous. They said, look, Musa, can we have a few idols so we can worship too? We want to enjoy this. And after all that he had done, they still were turning towards disbelief, and Samuri took advantage of this. Okay, so what did Samuri do? The Qur'an says he took something from beneath. It says Athar al-Rasul, but what it's actually talking about is he took some dust from beneath the hoof of the horse of Jibra'il. Jibra'il was on a horse and he saw Allah Azza wa Jalla. That's how God tests. He showed him a glimpse. He took off the dust beneath the hoof, and then when he made the golden calf, he read on the dust and he threw it on the golden calf. So the golden calf made a noise. It made like a mooing sound, So everyone got excited. Now probably this is where the Hindus got the idea of worshipping cows. But along comes this. That's a joke, It's not where they got it from, obviously, But anyway, so anyway, they went and they started to worship this golden calf after all the miracles they had seen. But that's how quickly people turn. People will turn away from their religion on the slightest obstacle. So what happened here with the Imam? This monk was doing the same thing. He would open his hand and it would rain. So Mu'tasim said, the people are turning away from religion. Alayna bi Abu Muhammad al-Hasan. Call Imam AlAskari, because they know who the Imam is. It's not like they don't know. So he brings him along, and then the Imam says, when he opens his hand, you grab his hand, there's something in his hand. So they quickly go and they grab his hand and they remove from his hand a small bone. And the Imam says, this bone belongs to a prophet. And every time it's revealed to the heavens will rain when they see the bone of the prophet. So miracles like that were shown at the time of Imam Hasan AlAskari, salawatullahi wa salamu alayh. What I want to look at tonight is one of the narrations that the Imam has. There's two of them that I want to look at. But the first one, where he says, inshallah we have time to look over both of them. He says, Man anasa billahi istawhasha minan nas. Man anas billah istawhash minan nas. What does that mean? If I look at when we go Ziyarat Imam Rida, once again we say, Ya Anisa Nufus. Unus. When you feel this familiarity, this comfort. I can't explain the actual word for it. That feeling where you feel like you're at home? Whoever feels familiarity, whoever feels comfort with Allah Azza wa Jal, the Imam says, Istawhasha minan nas. Istawhasha minan nas, he has an aversion towards people. Now, this is the thing, when you read this, you need to understand what we're saying. What the Imam is saying, we need to understand what the Imam is saying. Otherwise, if you ever read a hadith with a Wahhabi mentality, you'll think, all right, if I'm friends with God, everyone can go to hell. You know what I mean? You want to understand what the hadith says. Man anasa billah istawhasha minan nas. Anas billah. It means a lot of things on many levels. It means they look forward to their moments with God. They look forward to being alone and talking to God. They look forward for the nights where they pray to God. They look forward for the moments where they recite the Qur'an. Even Amir al-Mu'mineen would say that he anas bil-maut, anas al-maut bil-maut min al-tifli li thadi ummi. That Amir al-Mu'mineen was more comfortable and familiar with death than an infant was to his mother's breast. Because when he gets his sustenance, where the infant gets his nutrition, Amir al-Mu'mineen felt closer because he's returning to his Creator. Even like if, it's very difficult to reach this stage. Think about this. Think about this. And when prayer time is coming along, there are times and there are rare glimpses in your life. And when you have these, hold on to them. Because they don't stay. You have to be super special for these to stay. Where you actually look forward for prayers. You actually wait for prayers. And then there's times, whoa, I need to get this monkey off my back. How do I get this prayer out of the way? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, when he felt the adhan was coming near, he would say, Arihna ya Bilal. Oh Bilal, give us this respite, give us this comfort, get up and recite the adhan. He could feel the prayers coming close. He yearns for it. This is why when we read Dua Qumel, وَاجْعَلْ لِسَانِي بِذِكْرِكَ لَهِجَ وَقَلْبِي بِحُبِّكَ مُتَيَّمًا. Just make me be of those. That's all I think about. All I talk about is you. It's a true infatuation. It's love to a degree you cannot even fathom. There's no way to express that relationship between you and God. To get that, it's something that nothing can't be expressed into words. To reach that ability or have that level. Actually enjoy that moment. You don't want to enjoy anything else except to be with your Creator. And this is why they have this feeling. Because they've reached the point where they have a familiarity with their Creator. How does that mean? استوحش من الناس. Does that mean that they don't want to be around people? No. It means their moments with God are their best moments. And what is it that Allah wants from you? We have a hadith that says, when Musa asks Allah Azza wa Jal, when Allah Azza wa Jal asks Musa, have you done anything for me? Is there anything you've done for me? And Musa says, I did this, I did that. He says, yes, that you received that benefit from. Because everything you do, there's a benefit. When you pray, what does prayer do for you? Prayer protects you from sin. I'll list you a lot of things. Prayer gives you humility. Prayer teaches you to be punctual. There's a lot of benefits that prayer gives you. Fasting. Fasting gives you what? There's a lot of things. We can sit and add them all up. Fasting gives you strong willpower. Fasting gives you devotion. Fasting gives you the ability to combat with Satan. There's a lot of things fasting gives you. And now they finally accepted, in the last few years, intermittent fasting to be something that's healthy. But before that, people wouldn't accept it. When the Prophet was saying it was good, it wasn't okay until someone on Men's Fitness or something like that said, listen, you guys better start fasting. And everyone said, all right, this must be cool. And the Prophet says it. But if you look at everything, it's for us. Then he says, oh Allah, what is it that I can do for you? He says to him, have you loved a wali, a friend of mine? And have you taken enmity towards an enemy of mine? This is for me. So you, awliyaullah, are the believers, are the ones close to God. You need to, this is how you repay. I can't repay God directly. The way I repay God is by doing well with others. And this is where we go to another hadith on Imam Hasan AlAskari. You know what he says? Salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. He says in this hadith, he says, خصلتان ليس فوقهما شيء. There are two branches. I'm very sure many of you have heard this hadith not once, not twice, multiple times. خصلتان ليس فوقهما شيء. So imagine a tree, not a canopy tree. Imagine an emergent. You've got one of these evergreen trees, that's shooting through the canopy into the sky. You know, one of these massive eucalyptus trees. You know, you can see it's going off past the stratosphere. It looks like that anyway. It's going up there, you know. A bit of hyperbole doesn't hurt. But it's going right up there. And when you look at it, right at the top, there are 2 branches. Nothing above these 2 branches. That's the height. Imam says, Al-Imanu Billah is one of these branches. Belief in God. Belief is paramount. Because belief is what makes your actions validated. Your actions aren't validated without belief. If I don't have belief, my actions aren't validated. I could do everything. I could feed the entire universe. I don't believe in God, well, I did it for whoever I did it for. The flying spaghetti monster, whoever I believe in. So anyway, one is the belief in God, and the other is what? Is naf'ul akhwan. To benefit your brethren. To help others. There's no branch above that. To actually look to help others. See someone that needs help, help them. So this aversion to people does not mean abstaining from useless stuff. Rushing to help others. يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَةِ. Rushing to help people. إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا. Allah is with those that guard from me. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ محسنون. Allah is with those that... What's ihsan? Ihsan is when you do good to others. That's why when we say, for example, I don't know if anyone's heard this, if you ever go in the old days, and if you meet an old beggar, they don't ask you for sadaqah. Do you know what they ask you for? They say, هَلْ عَنْدَكَ حَسَنَةً. That's what they say, عَنْدَكَ حَسَنَةً. Have you ever heard someone say that to you? If you ever said that, عَنْدَكَ حَسَنَةً, they don't say, do you have a sadaqah? They say, حَسَنَةً, do you have a good deed? That's what ihsan is, to help others. So this is what the Imam has allowed us to see in this narration. That not only, the first one, he is telling you to have this attachment to God and to stay away from, it will make you averse towards people, means to worldly things, because you're attached to the hereafter, to your Creator. But then it doesn't mean to disassociate. Be with the people, but not a part of the people. And you be with the people. You come where? These religious gatherings. Be with the people, religious gatherings. Be with the people where there is an event that is lillah, something that is beneficial. Like what? Visiting one another. Obviously not visiting one each other to sit and gossip about the other people. Not visiting one another to sit there and plot against each other. No, visiting one another. Because sometimes someone is feeling down. You know, sometimes you're sitting at home, or and you remember someone just out of the blue. Call them. Contact them. Sometimes they're feeling down. You call them and you change their day. You make them feel good. You know, they've given up hope. Everyone's really selfish and thinking of themselves. And then suddenly you call them and they say, you know what? There are still some good people out there. And it changes their perspective. They feel happy that someone remembered them. And obviously, if you're affluent, you don't need to worry about that. People call you all the time. You know, but we're talking about the people that are one step away from becoming Oscar the Grouch. You know, people that are doing it tough in life, that need someone to look out for them. Finally, how are we doing with time, Hajj? Good. Finally, we go over the last narration with regard to Imam Hasan AlAskari alayhi salam, and this is a very nice narration. I like to pick out narrations that stab me all the time. They give me that wake up. I get that shock, that wake up. قال الإمام الحسن العسكري, in this narration, he says in this hadith, ادفع المسألة ما وجدت التحمل يمكنك. ادفع المسألة. Basically saying abstain from asking. How much? As much as you can bear. Not from asking Allah, from asking people. Abstain from it. Now sometimes you let something go and it's good for you. Sometimes you jump the gun and you pay for it. Sometimes you go ask, be patient. For example, say you get an eviction notice, you need to leave your house. You go, oh my God, I've got to find another place to rent. Before you start begging this guy or begging that person to help you out, wait, how long have I got my eviction notice? I start moving towards, and he says, hold out as much as you can. Bear with it. Why? I will tell you why. There was a story first, before I continue the narration. There's a story, once again, one of those stories I heard when I was a child. Every time I hear it, I love this story. There was a man, I've said this story once here, I think, yeah. There was a man who was living in poverty with his wife, and his wife said, go and ask the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alim. Ask him for some money, some help, so we can live. So he went to Masjid al-Nabawi Sharif. He arrived at the masjid. He saw the Prophet sitting with his companions talking. As he got closer to ask the Prophet, he heard the Prophet say, before he even spoke, Man sa'alana a'tayna. وَمَنِ اسْتَغْنَى أَغْنَاهُ اللَّهُ. Whoever asks us, we will give him. But whoever abstains, Allah will make them sufficient. So he walked away. He felt too ashamed to ask. The next day, his wife said, listen, we're almost there, Sunnah al-Hadid. We're almost there. You're going to have to do something about it. So he got up, went out there, said to the Prophet, got there. He's about to get close to the Prophet, and the Prophet said, Man sa'alana a'tayna wa man istaghna aghnahu Allah. Once again, whoever asks us, we will give him. But whoever abstains, Allah will suffice him. And then he returned. He didn't know what to do. The third day, his wife said, that's it. We're finished. We're down to the bare minimum. We've got nothing. So he went the third time. The same episode happened. Sorry about that. The same thing happened. So he was about to go home. He said, what do I do? What am I going to do? He went past. He saw his neighbor. He said to his neighbor, can I borrow an axe from you? And the neighbor said, yes. So he took the axe. He went out and cut up some timber. And he brought back the timber and he went and sold it. He bought some food and he took it home to eat. And then he kept doing this until he was able to buy himself an axe and started selling timber. So one day he returned to the Masjid al-Nabawi Sharif to tell the Prophet the story of what had happened to him. And what had happened every time he arrived. And then the Prophet asked him about the food that he ate. How does it taste? In fact, it's from what? Your ta'ab. You worked hard. That's why if you've ever seen drug dealers, what do they buy? They buy the nicest cars, they buy the flashiest clothes, they'll scratch the car, they'll throw their shoes, because they didn't work hard for them. They haven't put an effort. It's not hard work. People that steal money, it's not hard work. I remember one guy that in his office he'd have stacks of cash, and the person that was working there, I said, I'm not saying this, I think your boss is into some unorthodox activity. He said, why? I go, because no one that's ta'ban with their money, that worked hard for their money, throws it around like this. They don't throw their money around. People that have worked hard to earn their money, they know what its value is. They just don't throw it around because they know it was hard for them to earn it. People that throw their money around or buy stupid and useless things, usually they haven't earned this money in the correct way. Usually, I'm not saying that's always the case. Okay. Now, the Imam says, do not ask and bear as much as you can. He says, why? فَإِنَّ لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ خَبَرًا جَدِيدٍ. Every day something new pops up. You could have planned something and things change. You know what Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen says? They ask him, كيف عرفت الله? How did you know God? What does he say? عرفت الله بفسخ العزائم ونقض الهمم وحل العقود. How do you know God? فسخ العزائم. I've planned something, it doesn't happen. Something doesn't work out the way I wanted. You know? Number 2, he says, what? نقض الهمم. Sometimes I've got something that's worrying me, or I've got a thing that's going to preoccupy me, and somehow, what happens? It's no longer there. It's problem solved. And the other one says, حل العقود. Sometimes you're in a knot. There's a big problem in every, and it just comes undone. You go, how did this come undone? How did this work out? What was the possibility that this would work out? And it just happens. And that's how he says, that's how I knew God exists. In another poem, the Imam says, فَكَمْ لِلَّهِ مِنْ لُطْفٍ خَفِي. How often does God have a hidden generosity? A hidden kindness, something that you didn't expect, and God gets you out of it. God gives you something in a way, من حيث لا تحتسب, in a way where you could not even imagine. So he says, فإن لكل يوم خبرا جديد والإلحاح في المطلب يسلب البهاء. Every day you're nagging someone, every day you're asking people. You know what that does? There's this thing we call in Arabic ma al-wajh. You know, ma al-wajh, your baha, he means the radiance. You know, there's someone say, oh, here he comes again. You're like the antagonist. Every time you rock up, oh my God, all they need to do is play the evil music as you're coming in. You know, oh, he's going to ask for something again. You're just one of those people, when you turn up, you want something. You have no, people don't have that, you don't have no dignity. You know how they say, nafsak ad-niyya? You have that, you don't have any self-respect. That's something you do as a kid. You'll always take as a kid, you'll always take the last biscuit. You're like that. But as you get older, you realize to not have that lowly desire control you. Then he says, ربما كانت الغير نوعا من أدب الله عز وجل. Maybe this situation you're in, this change that's happening, is a form of God like refining you or polishing you up. Maybe you're not getting what you want, or you're not getting what you seek, because God wants to refine you. God wants to teach you something. So you're not going to get it at the moment you want it. Then he says, وَالْحُظُوظ, then he says, وَالْحُظُوظ مَرَاتِبْ. وَالْحُظُوظ. No one say حظك, meaning your fortune or your luck. It's an actual word. Maratib. You know how we say يوم إلك ويوم عليك? Sometimes it's your day, sometimes you're going to get something. But it comes maratib, in stages. It comes at its right time. You imagine you're getting it all at once. And then he explains why, and the explanation is amazing. فَلَا تَعْجَلْ عَلَى ثَمَرَةٍ لَمْ تُدْرِكْ فَإِنَّهَا تُنَالُ فِي أَوَانِهَا. Don't go for a fruit that hasn't, what's it called, been complete, that's not ready. Why? Because he says, فَإِنَّهَا تُنَالُ فِي أَوَانِهَا. So you will get what you're looking for when it's ripe. You know what I mean? We have a saying where they said, it's a Lebanese and a Syrian saying, They say, I'll say it in Arabic and then I'll explain it. You know, they said to Ramadan, why don't you come in Sha'ban? قالوا رمضان لما بتجي بشعبان؟ قال لهم كل شيء حلو what? They said to Ramadan, why don't you come in Sha'ban? He said everything is good at its time. Everything comes at the right time. The time for the thing is the best time. So the fruit that I'm going to get has to be ripe. If you eat it before it's ripe, what happens? It doesn't taste what you want it to taste like. Have you ever had a green banana or a green mango or an unripe pineapple? You'll end up with mouth ulcers. Because they're not ripe, they're not ready to be consumed. And then the Imam says, Al-Mudabbiru laka a'lamu bil-waqt alladhi yuslihu halaka fi. Who knows when is the right time? The one that has prepared this for you. Allah knows when's the right time for you to have this. Know this. Remember when we were talking about the video for Hajj Ali and I, when I told you the first video that I watched for Sheikh Ali Rida Panayan, the one that pushed the podcast, that one is the best, one of the best videos you watch for him. The one, if you ever look it up, right behind the curtain, just write it. It's the best video. It's the best video he's made. There's 3 videos I really like, but that one's my favorite, right behind the curtain. And it's talking about this. It's always, see, when you're dealing with God, what you want is always there. But it only comes at the right time. And then he says, فَثِقْ بِخِيرَتِهِ فِي أُمُورِكَ. Trust in God. Allah wants what's best for you. Why do you think Allah loved Ibrahim so much? Allah Azza wa Jal loved Ibrahim so much. You want to know how much Allah loved Ibrahim al-Khalil? You know what Khalil means, dear friend? That when Rasulullah or the Imams mention any prophet, do you know what they say about any prophet? They'll say Nabi Musa, they will say alayhi, afwan, ala nabiyina wa alihi wa alayhi salam. They say, Musa, may salam be upon our prophet and his Ahl al-Bayt and this prophet, except for Nabi Ibrahim. They say alayhi wa ala nabiyina wa alayhi salam. For Ibrahim, they say the salam upon Ibrahim first. Why? Because Rasulullah loved him a lot. Why he loved Ibrahim? Rasulullah loved Ibrahim more than any other prophet. Allah loved him so dearly. Why? Why would Allah love Ibrahim so much? When Ibrahim was flung into the fire, all the angels came to ask to support him. What did Ibrahim say? He said, I want Allah. I'm expecting Allah to save me. So then Jibreel said, say something. You're about to be burnt, say something. He says, يغنيني عن سؤالي علمه بحالي. I don't need to say anything. Suffices me to ask that He knows my plight. Allah knows where I am. In other words, Allah cares about me more than I care about myself. To have this trust in Allah, Allah says, وَإِبْرَاهِيمُ الَّذِي وَفَّى. Ibrahim is the loyal one. Really believes that I love him more than he loves himself. It says, وَلَا تَعْجَلْ حَوَائِجَكَ فِي أَوَّلِ وَقْتِكَ فَيَضِيقَ قَلْبُكَ. If you want the haja right now, so I want something now, God give it to me right now. He says, what will happen? You'll feel this constriction on your chest, you know. You feel, oh, why isn't this happening? Why isn't my prayer getting answered immediately? And then he says, وَيَغْشَاكَ الْقُنُوتِ. What will happen? Despair will overwhelm you. You know, you get people, I remember one brother said, my mother went to all the shrines, one shrine after the other, do this dua for me, and it never worked out. And I'm going to mix this story up because if I say it in a correct way, people might know the person. He was in a situation, and he said, my mother went to all the shrines, and she prayed and prayed, and God didn't answer. She went to every shrine. She went under the dome of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. And I said, your situation is probably what's best for you. That's what the dua is. He kept nagging. He got out of the situation. Do you know what happened when he got out? He got killed. He was in a problem. He got out of it and he got killed. So the situation he was in was better for him, even though he thought it was terrible. What happens? You're the one that has the what? The hurt. So be content in the situation you are in. And when you ask, yeah. Nag God. It's good to nag God. Beg God. It's good to beg God. God loves to hear your voice. But don't be in a way where you turn to other than God. I want sustenance. I go turn to other. But I think from there I will get my sustenance. Have that idea. Things never work out in that direction. Inshallah, that this night is a night of blessing upon you all. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal on this night to forgive us from our transgressions. We ask Allah not to allow anyone that is here whose heart is constricted with a problem, except that Allah Azza wa Jal relieves them with this problem with the best possible outcome. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to guide us upon the righteous path, the path of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal not to take us from this world until He is pleased with us, and that He doesn't even punish us for the twinkling of an eye. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to hasten the reappearance of our master Al-Hujjat ibn Al-Hasan Al-Mahdi arwahuna fidah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. والأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والأرواح موتانا وموتاكم ولقبول الأعمال وقضاء الحوائج وتعجيل الفرج. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.